Hi everybody, I'm Miss Karen at Adams Memorial Library here in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Welcome to our September Inquire Within program. So for this month's Inquire Within kit, which you can come and pick up in the children's room at the library, we've got things about fall, specifically kind of talking about the harvest. So, when we get into autumn, when we get into fall, it could be when you're getting the last of the things from garden, if you have a garden, or it could be an idea. You have the idea to go get apples. Maybe you could pick your own. You can go to an apple orchard, or you can make apple crafts. Maybe you're starting to think about pumpkins, so you could do pumpkin crafts. Maybe you're planting pumpkins at your house. Maybe you're thinking about things you can make with apples and pumpkins. Well, if you are, we've got the perfect kit for you. And if you're not thinking about it yet, we've got the perfect kit for you, because it'll make you start thinking about apples and pumpkins and lovely things about fall, because fall is still a great time to go outside, right? Yeah, so, great time to spend time outdoors, especially if you're like me and you don't really like super hot weather. This is a great time. You can go out and go for a walk. You can look at the trees with the leaves starting to change colors. You can feel how maybe it's getting a little windier. Maybe it's getting dark sooner. The light's different. There's lots and lots of things to go out and observe about fall. And many of them will be in this kit for you. So besides the craft materials, which I'll tell you about in a minute, we've got a lot of other things. We've got some things for you for the new show called Weather Hunters on the new PBS Kids show called Weather Hunters. So this is a great time to go outside and study the weather. See what you can see outside. You can study the wind. You can draw a picture of the wind if you'd like. You can blow bubbles in the wind, because if you had some bubble solution and you were blowing bubbles, you had a bubble wand, you could definitely see which way the wind's blowing by which way your bubbles go. So that's a good way to observe the wind. And here you could draw a picture. You always make those lines so you can see, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. You can see by his picture there, it's a windy day. So you can study the wind. Another way to study the wind is by making a pinwheel. So there's instructions for making the pinwheel. And then here is the pinwheel paper. And in the kit, there will be a pencil and little thumbtacks. So clearly be very careful with the thumbtack, because it's sharp and it's pointy, but that's what you're going to need to fasten your pinwheel into the eraser of the pencil. So the pencil will be in the bag with a glue stick and one of these brass fasteners that we'll use for this pumpkin craft. So be careful when you get the things out of the bag. You don't want to let the thumbtack or the brass fastener fall out, and you don't want to poke yourself with either one, so just be careful of those. But for the pinwheel, you will need the pencil and the thumbtack that are in the bag. And what you're going to do with this paper, you can color just one section of this, or if you wanted to color it all, make one section a different color so you can identify it. Because what you're going to do, if you're going to cut this out, there's dotted lines, and then here around the center, there's a circle with a solid line. Don't cut through the solid line, just cut on the dotted line. So you're going to cut this square out, and then you're going to cut in from each corner to here on the circle. So that's going to be the flaps on your pinwheel. And then you're going to put this instructional in here. You're going to pull each piece in, and you're going to use that thumbtack to attach it to the eraser of the pencil, and then you're going to hold the pencil when you're outside, or you can stick it in the ground. And then to see how fast the wind's blowing, you're going to count how many times your pinwheel spins around. And that's why you want to have one part a different color. So you could, if one part was red, you'll count how many times the red part spins around. So, 1, 2, 3, like that. And if it's windier, and if the wind's blowing really fast, then it's going to spin your pinwheel faster. You can write down your observations. You could be a weather hunter, and you can be a weather scientist. You can also, besides the wind, you can study the clouds. This side of the paper has different types of clouds. So you can identify them. There's cirrus clouds, cumulus clouds, cumulonimbus clouds, stratus clouds, and then you'll know when you see those clouds what kind of weather we're going to have too. And here's where you can write down or draw your observations for that too. So you can observe the wind, you can observe the clouds. Or you can just observe in general when you're outside. You can take this paper with you. It's also from the Weather Hunters, but it's got one square that says I see, one that says I hear, one that says I smell, and one that says I feel. So if you're outside, sometimes in the fall, you can smell kind of a smoky smell. If people are burning leaves, so you could say I smell smoke. Or if they're have a wood burning stove, sometimes you can smell smoke. Sometimes you could smell if somebody's cooking. Whatever you can smell, you can write it down. Write down what you see or draw it. You can hear. Sometimes you can hear the wind. Sometimes you can feel the wind. But this is your chance to go out and observe and be a scientist and see, what you can hear, what you can feel, and what you can smell. Or you can just go on scavenger hunt and see lots of stuff that you can see with this Nature Cat scavenger hunt. You'll still see flowers in the fall, right? Maybe different types, but you'll still see flowers. You'll still see birds. Flying insects, maybe not quite as many. You can go out and see if you see fewer insects in the fall than you do in the summer. Leaves, spiders, spider webs, all kinds of good things to look for with that. And then if you're getting, if it's getting a little chilly outside or if it's getting dark, you can go inside, and we've got some inside activities for you too. Here's Ernie's Autumn Hay Maze. So the idea is to follow the maze and get Ernie from one side to the other side of the maze. And you can color on it too if you want to put some more things for Ernie, but he's got some apples, like we're talking about, some pumpkins. So, that's his autumn, why it's his autumn maze. If you feel like it, there's a paper about how you can do apple seed math. So you can draw yourself an apple. You could use real apple seeds if you had them, or you could have little beads or little stones or little black beans, dried beans, and you can pretend that you're counting seeds on an apple, and you can add them together. You can see how many seeds. You can observe an apple too. When you have somebody cut open an apple, you can see how many seeds are in it. And then you can use this recipe from Daniel Tiger's neighborhood and make apple chips. So if you've got some apples, somebody in your family, an adult who has got good knife skills, because you need to cut these pretty thin. And, sometimes you can just slice apples and eat them that way. Well, this time you want them to be super thin because you're going to bake them and you want them to turn into dried apples. So if they're too thick, it's going to take too long for them to cook in the oven and dry. You want them to be kind of crispy, but they're very yummy. When you're out doing your weather observations, you could take your apple chips as a snack. They'd be easy to transport. Or another thing you could do, here's another thing from Nature Cat, is make fruit leather. So for this recipe, you can take frozen fruit. If you add frozen strawberries or something, take some strawberries, you put them in the blender, add a little juice, blend them all up, and then you'll spread that on a cookie tray. And you'll want to put down some parchment paper or silicone mat or even aluminum foil or something. Spread the mushed up fruit, the blended fruit, all nice and evenly on there, and then you'll cook that. So an adult would have to put that, it's kind of baking it in the oven. So you're going to bake that for a long time. It'll tell you how long, and it's not a high temperature because you don't want it to get burnt. You're just going to have it dried out, and then afterwards an adult can cut these up, and then you can roll them. And then you can take that with you when you're out on your autumn walks or doing your autumn experiments. And if you've already done all your experiments, you've finished the maze, you've got your snacks ready, then it might be time to do some crafts. So you could decorate with apple chains. You could decorate with pumpkin chains. In the kits, there will be a piece of red construction paper and orange construction paper. And the first thing you will do is cut it in half lengthwise. So the paper is this long, you will cut it in half, and then you'll be able to make 2 chains. So this is 1/2, and if you use both pieces of paper, then you can make 2 chains, put them together. And if you have more orange paper at home, you can make more. You can just have paper chains from apples and pumpkins going all around your house. But what you will do, once you've cut this in half, you will then fold that half paper in half. And then you will fold it in half again. And then you will fold it in half one more time. So 3 times in half. Fold the whole thing in half, fold it in half again, fold it in half again. And then you open it up again. And you're going to accordion fold it. And so accordion fold is the one where it goes one way and then the other, one way, back and forth, back and forth. So you fold it one way, and then you can turn it over and fold it going in the other direction. So you're going to use the crease lines you already made, but you're going to make it go back and forth. So flip it again, fold that, flip it again, go down, turn it over, go down, turn it over, go down, and make sure it's going. This is, they call it an accordion when it's going like this. So once you've had it all in an accordion, that means you could open it up and then smush it back together again. So all the folds are going to be going in opposite ways. And you'll do that whether you're making the apple one or the pumpkin one. And then you will put this in to give you an idea of how you're going to be drawing on it. I would draw it with pencil first. That's what I did. And then you'll have a little bit of a chance to erase the lines if you need to redo it. I mean, the woman who did this craft, the woman who did this craft from PJs and Paint, she's a little better at crafting than I am, so she can draw it with a marker. But even she, I believe, drew it with a pencil first and then made the marker on top of it to see it. But this is her folded up paper. And when you're doing this, you want the part without the openings, where it's just folds, on your left, and the part that's open on your right. So if I had it down flat, this part on my left is where the folds are. This part that's open is on the right. So I'm going to flip it over because I want the parts with the folds is where they're connected. We don't want them to fall apart. But what you'll need to do then is draw a picture on here. And so each one of these is going to be half of the pumpkin or half of the apple. So on this one, you would draw it with a little stem. So this way, little stem, and then it's going to come around because this is where we need it to connect. So draw the stem, draw a round part of the pumpkin this way. Don't cut through it. Draw the other part down this way. So once it's cut out, this one, there we go. It's going to look like this. You draw the stem and then around to the end, and then at the bottom to the end. So there's going to be one part that's just even on the end where it's not. Don't make sure you draw the line all the way to the end and all the way to the end, because you don't want it to fall apart. If you fall apart, you can tape them back together. But ideally, when you do it, after you've drawn it, you've got your parts connected on the end, but you cut here and around the stem, you cut from the bottom to the pumpkin, and then when you pull it open, it's a little pumpkin chain like that. Now for the apples, it would be the same thing. You've folded your paper in half, and in half, and in half again, and then you've accordion folded it, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then you will be able to draw the apple part. So you'll have a stem, and if you want to draw a leaf, you can draw that, and you'll make the top of the apple, nothing on the end where they need to be connected, and then draw to the bottom of the apple. So you have your stem, your leaf, the connected part, and then when you've cut to the around the top and around the leaf, and then around the bottom, when you open it up, it will ideally look like an apple. And if you don't cut it quite right, then it might look a little more like a tomato, which is how I think this one looks. I made it a little bit too kind of short and squat. This one's a little bit longer, and I think it looks a little more like an apple. So if you have some other paper at home, you might want to draw a few and cut them out a few times first and see what it looks, how it looks best to you. But, you know, sometimes the apples are kind of short and squat too. It's fine. And I sort of just fixed it, cut it a little more so it tried to look more like an apple. So that's how these work. And then if you want, you can draw faces on them. You can color these. You can decorate them, put glitter on them. You can make them as fancy as you would like. Now for this kind of pumpkin, there will be some orange cardstock in your kit. That's someone that's a little heavier paper, and a half piece of green cardstock that you can use for the stem. What you would want to do with this is cut strips vertically, and my strips were 1 inch wide. So this paper is 8.5 inches this way, so I got 8 strips that were 1 inch wide and one that was a 1/2 inch, but really I only used 6 of them to make my pumpkin. But when you're done cutting them, you will have these 1 inch long. I mean, if you can experiment, if you want it to be a different width, if you want to have a skinnier lines, you can make them 3/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch. It's up to you, however you want to cut them. But once you have your strips cut in the kit, remember that thumbtack that you're going to use for your pinwheel? You could also use it, before you make the pinwheel, you could use it to make little holes in the end of this, of each strip. You need the little holes because you're going to attach this all together with the brass fastener that's in the bag. To make the holes, you can get an adult to help you. So you'll need to put it down on something, a place where you can push the thumbtack or a push pin in without damaging anything. So I did it on the floor of the library, so I did it into the carpet. Because you want the push pin to be able to go through the hole, and you want something that's underneath. If you have a cushion or something that's kind of squishy, that would be ideal. If you have a pin cushion, that would work well. But in each of your strips, you'll put a hole in both ends in all of your strips. Once you have the holes in each end, you will take your strips and you'll put them down and you'll crisscross them like this. And if you have more, they're going to be going that way. And then you'll get your brass fastener ready. And that's what you will use to hold these all together. So you're going to take the bottom strips, whatever the one you put down first, and you'll bring it up like this and put the brass fastener. So the top of the brass fastener is actually going to be on the inside of your pumpkin. So the part that's sticky up is going to go through the hole from the bottom. So you'll put your brass fastener right here, poke it up through the hole, bring this side, poke it up through the hole so they'll both be connected. Then you'll take another strip, bring that, poke the hole through it, bring this side, put it up, put the brass fastener through the hole, and so on till you've got all your strips up at the top. They're all attached to the brass fastener. Then you take the top of the brass fastener and you'll just pull the 2 ends down, and that's going to hold it all in place. Then if you would like, you can take the green cardstock and make a little stem. So if you want, you can just roll it up, make a stem that way, glue it together so it will hold, and then I actually, one side of the is glued together, and then I kind of smushed it because it was just easier that way. But I cut 4 cuts into the bottom and straightened that out so that would flatten out, and then I could glue it to the top. You can move these strips around. So if you need to get your fingers in there so you can hold the stem down. If you have if somebody in your family has a glue gun, you could glue it down with the glue gun. An adult could do that. Or if you had liquid glue, you could do that. You could just hold it in place. But that's going to cover up the brass fastener. And if the glue doesn't work, tape it down. That works too. I put some glue and some tape on mine. But there will also be some leaves in, and if you would like, you can glue or tape those on top, or you can use them for another decoration, for another fall decoration, but they'll be in the kit too. So you can put those on and you can put your harvest decorations out and you will be all ready for autumn. So thank you very much, friends. You can come down to the children's room, pick up the kits, or call us. We can have them ready for you for curbside service, and we'll have them as long as supplies last. But I want to thank our friends at WQED Education and Clearview Federal Credit Union for their support so we can bring these kits to you. So thank you very, very much to our friends at Clearview and WQED. Thank you, friends, and thank you, friends. Thanks for watching. Thanks for doing the crafts. Thanks for doing all the activities. Please, if you want to let us know how all your stuff comes out, if you want to show us any of your observations, you can always email us at kids@adamslib.org. Or if you're not able to come in to get a kit, you can email us and we'd be happy to send you out the information by email if you're not able to come in to get the kit. But if you are able, come on in, get the kit, do the crafts, and enjoy fall. Happy fall, everybody, and thank you, and I'll see you next month. Thank you. Bye.